The key is create a system to elicit and take and learn how to get feedback and decide, is it feedback or is it criticism? Because if you're criticizing me, that's great, but what do you want me to do with that? Yes, we have both established that I am not going to be a ballerina. You look at me and say, "Oh, well, you're fat." Yeah, I know. Gosh, that's why I'm starting Zepbound this week. Tell me something I don't know.
Wait, but you said that. Like, I feel like there's the P in there, the positive. Like, you get to choose your attitude to it. Like, it's a neutral word, but then you get to choose how you respond.
You don't get to choose how you react. All right, let's talk about the difference between reaction and response. And let's go back to the rejection sensitive dysphoria. I know about myself. I know that when certain things happen, especially if my husband misunderstands me, I am going to go through a cycle of rejection sensitive dysphoria. I've got it just like everybody else. And I'm going to litigate every single word he said, every thought, every nuance. What was he how was he looking? What was going on around me? But what I do with that is different. Reaction is what happens physiologically. My reaction is I'm going to choke up. My chest is going to seize. I'm going to feel like I can't breathe. I know these things about myself. I'm 58 years old. I have gone through this cycle a lot of times. This is where failing fabulously, not letting it bother you. It bothers me a great deal. I know that in order to do that, then I'm gonna have to sit down and work my way backwards and see where our understanding diverged, because most of the time we're saying the same thing. Most communication in life is a blind person screaming at a deaf person, and the deaf person is using sign language, and they're both saying, "Why aren't you listening to me?" They're speaking in their own language. So what I need to do at that point is not scream louder at him. It's find a translator. And for me, I created this system, the Get to Know University, this course that is going to talk you through how to do exactly what I'm talking about. Now, at the end of my rejection sensitive dysphoria cycle, because it's going to happen, there's no way it's not going to happen. I come back to him and I say, "Hey, let's sit down and let's talk about this." I don't respond until I'm done reacting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like you let the reaction happen naturally, like what you show to other people, because it's not gonna be a productive conversation if you're just crying and being upset.
Right, and I'm gonna cry. I'm going to be upset. I was crying in here. You see how confident I am, right? I was crying in here earlier because I couldn't get the forward-facing camera to work. And so I can sit here and try to stuff that down and say, "Okay, I am 58 years old. I am a confident woman. I can give myself affirmations." Or I can say, "Gosh, I really get frustrated with small technical glitches." And so I cried, and I think I got most of my mascara off, and we moved forward. I'm good. We don't get to take ourselves and say, "Okay, this part of me is good, and then this part of me is bad, and then this part of me." It is what it is. You are who you are. And the sooner you learn to see yourself as a whole, but also see the parts of you individually and simultaneously. I know that I have rejection sensitive dysphoria. I also have celiac. So if I eat a piece of bread, I'm going to mess myself. My body is going to see that as poison, and it is going to get rid of it one way or the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love all the examples you share because that's really how I learn best.
Yeah.
But you said some interesting things. Like you first mentioned, like this voice in your head. Whose voice is that? And then I realized that I always thought the voice was myself. But now when you said that, I'm like, well, no. Where did I learn this from? Like, why am I being so self-critical? Because you don't grow up just like hating yourself, right? Like, not that I do, but like there are some voices
No, I know.
make me insecure. So I'm like, who taught me this? Like, what was the situation that led to this? And instead of like repressing it, you're saying you need to accept this part of yourself and then just move forward, knowing that it's there, but it doesn't have to dictate your life.
Right. Is there anything I can do to change your opinion of me? If you think that I talk too much, we're going to agree on that. I talk too much. I am hyperverbal. There are some people on the spectrum who are nonverbal, who aren't able to take the brilliance in their brain and get it out of their mouth. My problem is the opposite of that. I'm hyperverbal. I have all this brilliance in my brain, and I don't know where to start with it. And so I come across as being very condescending. I come across as being very rude because I'm very direct. If you meet me in person, you either are going to love me or you're not. That has very little to do with me because I'm the same person when you meet me, no matter what. But you are not necessarily entitled to proximity to my brilliance. If my brilliance hurts your eyes, I'm not going to dim it. But either you or I need to step away. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I love that metaphor because I'm like, wait, I love your unapologeticness, your authenticity, and like, I love listening to you. But there might be some people out there who are like, wait, no, this is not for me. So
Absolutely.
you can control whether or not like you step away or they step away.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to finish this podcast, and I am going to have said exactly what I said. I'm recording it myself on my own phone because if you decide to throw it away, I want to go back and listen and critique myself and see how many times I said, does that make sense? Because as a person who is cursed, if you will, with a stupidly high IQ, I mean, I way above Mensa. I went through high school and finished a year early, and I went through college in 3 years, and I went through, I was on full scholarship on everything. I know that is a strength about myself. Being a genius, being smart is something that the world has told me I'm supposed to not say. I'm supposed to say, well, you may not know this, but I can't find my keys. Well, of course I can't find my keys. I don't have the brain width to bother with small details. So there are things about me that are absolutely double sides of the same coin. I get to decide who I share my wisdom with. The one thing that I have learned most of all, again, back to our original question, why did I reach out to you? Because I reached out to you. I watched your first podcast. I looked at your feed and I thought, this is somebody who I would like feedback from. Now, I've spoken most of the time, but I want feedback from you. The last line of my book, I'll pull up, it says, different wings for different things and different ways of being. My way is right, but just for me. Your way is right for you. Each with wings to do the things that we were made to do. So go fly high, dear bird brains. We all live by one rule. There's no wrong way to journey. Each chooser gets to choose. We do not need to think alike or beat our wings in time. To build an empire of empathy means honoring your flight and mine. Please tell me what I cannot see, what you think I can do better. But don't forget that every bird is made of a different feather. That's my little hummingbird.
It hits so different when you read it out. I love it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I need to do now is start. I'm gonna just start doing lives and reading my book because it says everything I needed to say.
Why don't I get the people who listen to this whole podcast to leave a comment with a piece of feedback for you? Would you like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing that I don't want. Let me give you a little crash course on feedback. You all were raised in this world where social media existed. And when I started on social media, when Facebook first came out, it was like, here is my food that I'm eating. And you take a picture of it. You didn't dress the plate up. You just, I am walking down the street. And somehow over the time, social media got designed on how many likes do I get? What I want you to tell me is what weird, quirky, offensive things did I say? What things do you go, what in the hell did you mean by that, woman? That's what we need to create. I call it the empire of empathy, and it's a term that I got from my first million. It was actually condescendingly making a joke about Joanna Gaines and Oprah and Brene Brown and this vulnerability crowd. Sean said, one of the hosts said, "Empires with empathy," and Sam, the other host, laughed and he said, "Yeah, and capitalize both the E's." Here's the deal: I plan to capitalize and make a lot of money on building an empire of empathy because empathy is not about agreeing with each other and liking our post and me putting on Facebook and saying, y'all, I've decided to become a ballerina. If I did that, I would want everybody I know to go, Paige, have you lost your mind? I want them to call my husband and say, Paige has obviously lost her mind. Go stop her. This is not a good idea. But we lost the desire for that kind of feedback.
So it's kind of about being known and seen, where if you're trying to be a little bit delusional, people are like, okay, you won't like this. Like, why are you trying to force yourself to be someone you're not?
Right. And so here's where we go back. Remember in our original conversation when you and I were talking about your definition of success as a ballerina would be the best dancer you can be. That's not a ballerina. Let's define the word. If you want to be, and if that's what you call a ballerina, that's fine. If you say to me, hey, Paige, I think I'm going to go take dance lessons because I want to be a ballerina, my job as somebody who is authentic is to say, what do you mean by ballerina? And if you say, oh, I want to go creatively move, I will support you in that 100%. But if you have come to me for feedback and you have said, "Hey, I'm thinking about being a ballerina. What do you think?" If I am your friend or even a halfway decent human being, I'm going to ask you, what do you know about ballerina life? What do you know about what it would take? What do you know about that topic? Are you sure you are the person to do? And if you say at the end of it, I do, and this has always been my dream, and I want to see how far I can go with it, then I'm going to say, all right, what's the best case scenario? How can we help you get to your best case scenario based on your definition of where you want to go? We don't know how to do that. So, my challenge to you, to your audience, is to, as you start listening to this, scribble down what made your skin crawl, not what made you light up. I don't want to know what I already know. Tell me what I don't know.
Oh, okay, so the feedback you're looking for is more like what stood out in the negative way?
I don't want feedback that says, "You're so pretty. You got all the mascara out from under your eyeballs. I couldn't even tell that you cried." I know. Of course I know. I checked before I went to make sure. Tell me what I can't see. Ask me a question that wasn't clear to you. I will give you one line that could change the world if we could understand how to do it. This is what I live by. Let me see if I get it. I know you believe you heard what I said, is what I'm saying. So what we need to learn how to do is say, "Hey, what I heard you say was I can't be a ballerina. Is that what you meant?" And then give me a chance to say, "No, no, 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 no. What I said was, let's define how you're going to define success as a ballerina. And if you want feedback, I will help you get there. What did I say in this hour plus long rambling, all my thoughts coming out so fast that didn't make any sense to you?" And then allow me to respond and say, "Oh, I didn't say you can't be a ballerina. I said I can't be a ballerina." And that's what we have to learn how to do. That's how we learn to give and receive feedback. It's not tell me what you hate about me, because I probably hate the same things about me that you hate. It's that open Johari window that we talked about. The things about me that are obvious are obvious. I don't need you to tell me that. What I need you to say is, "Hey, I don't really understand what you meant by this. Can you explain it more?" The term I'll give you an example. Neurosparkle offends so many people because it is not designed to be a term to soften the challenges of neurodivergence. I worked as a therapist for children with severe autism and ADHD. I worked with kids who have been physically and sexually abused and have trauma responses and stories you don't ever want to hear. I am not one to tell you that neurodivergence, it is hard being different in a world that is not designed for difference. So Neurosparkle is not designed to describe neurodivergence. So when I use that term, it offends a lot of people. I mean, I get people ugly in my comments, and I love that because what it does is it confirms to me that I need to explain a little bit more that neurodivergence and neurosparkle are not synonymous. Neurosparkle refers to those of us who are aware of our strengths, our traits, our idiosyncrasies, our quirks, and our skills, and have understood how we fit in the world. And here's the difference, and have been allowed to build a life where we do most what we do best in the way that works best for us, rather than trying to fix our deficits.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. And I see that you only got to clarify it after you got the feedback. So that's the kind of feedback you're looking for. To me, when I hear Neurosparkle, after you explained it that way, it's kind of like, you know, I guess a diamond surrounded by coals. And it's like, why am I not like the others? But then if it's not trying to be like the others, then it doesn't matter. It's like it's self aware
Yeah.
that it's not meant to be something else.
Exactly. And that's why I wrote it in a storybook, because by writing it in a storybook, it's an adult storybook. It's disguised as a children's book, but it's really an adult story that says, "Stop telling me I suck because I'm not an eagle. I'm a hummingbird." In my idea of the bird brain archetypes, we are all four of the birds. There's parts of us that are all of these different birds. But if you're speaking to a bird in nature, you don't criticize an owl for sleeping all day. That's how they were made. So you say to the owl, "You didn't get anything done today." The owl's going to go, "Yeah, I know, because my nature is that I sleep all day and then I work all night. Do you have a criticism for me? Or are you just making an observation?
Wow, I love that. It comes from a place of self-awareness and knowing your strengths and weaknesses, which is what you're saying Neurosparkle is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. Do
Wow.
you mind if I tell the feedback of when I told you to move something behind you today?
Oh yeah, of course.
When we got ready to start doing the podcast, there was a jacket that was in my line of sight. And so as I was talking to you, there was sheet music, and right over your shoulder, there was sheet music and a jacket. You didn't realize it was there. You didn't see it. But I knew for myself that it was going to be something that my eyes were going to train on. I was going to see this. If it did that to me with my ADHD, I didn't want it to be that way for somebody else. So I gave you feedback, not, hey, your room looks messy. Can you please clean it up? That wasn't what I gave you feedback on. I said, there's something over your shoulder. I think if you moved that, it might be a clearer palette, for us to paint our picture on. And how did that feedback make you feel?
I was totally fine with it. I appreciated that you told me because now I'm like, okay, every future podcast guest is not gonna have to deal with that minor inconvenience.
And it wasn't even an inconvenience. It was just a way that we could make our shared time together a little bit better is not the right word. And if you had said to me, no, Paige, that is my favorite jacket and that sheet music, just like my book, you could tell me, hey, Paige, your book is distracting in the background. And I'd say, I'll take it down if you want me to, but I also want to remember to tell everybody to go to buy my book on Amazon and sign up for my Neurosparkle newsletter. That's where feedback comes from. And that's the difference between feedback and criticism. That's the difference between failing fabulously. Failing fabulously says, if I'm going to fail, I want to fail fast. I want to fail furiously. I want to fail fully. I want to have given it my all. And then at the end of this, like I said, if you say, oh, was that woman talking about delete, delete, delete? I've got my video. I'm here for what I wanted, and I hope that we have a shared experience.
I feel like you just completely rewired my brain because I always thought feedback was maybe part of the reason why I always try to give positive feedback and not critical was because I that rejection sensitivity thing where I'm like, oh, they might take it as criticism. But what you're saying is being secure in your power to frame the feedback in a way that can be positive because like what you're saying to me for this distraction jacket sheet music thing, it's not just for you or me, it's for future guests as well. Like it could help me in the future. So if I reframe feedback from that lens of like, okay, it's not just like critical, it's also helping the other person and I can frame it with that intention so they're not taking it super personally, then it makes it a lot easier to be authentic and like to know myself better and be in touch with my intuition.
Absolutely. But here's the key to feedback. I am a wise woman. There's no doubt about that. You figured that out pretty quickly. But I have found that it is best to feed my wisdom and share it with people who have invited me to do so. See, you and I entered into a contract when we decided to sit down and have this conversation. And the contract was that we had a shared goal of having a conversation that I hope will be interesting for your guests. I hope that it will be something that you take personally and integrate. Let's be honest. I want to make a lot of money and I want you to make a lot of money. I have made six figures in everything I've ever tried. I've stayed with, that I've stuck with. I don't want to make an extra $20 on, YouTube royalties or whatever. I got my first royalty check for my book and it was fantastic, but my book is not where my income is going to come. My income is going to come from the course and those things. The only way I'm going to know if anybody wants to pay me big bucks for coaching and my cohorts and those things is to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Figure out what is not hitting so that I'm not standing up with, boogers in my nose saying, well, here's my story. Nobody's going to want to watch the podcast if there's something glaring that I don't see that everybody else sees.
So let me reframe this feedback because the feedback is not just to improve your ego or like make you feel better. The feedback that you want is for people to tell you how you can improve so you can reach more people with your courses, your coaching. All of that stuff is meant to help other people. So if
Right.
they give you feedback now, you have a better chance of helping even more people in the future and also make a lot of money.
Exactly.
So that's why you're looking for that type of feedback.
Exactly. And that's what I want to teach other people how to get. If you can learn how to receive feedback, you can change the world. I am building what I call an empire of empathy. And we are going to reclaim what that word means, because empathy does not mean that I agree with you. Empathy does not mean that I have compassion for you. Empathy does not mean that I am emotionally attached to you. Empathy means that I look at your situation and I ask myself, how would I feel if I can't ever be in your shoes? I don't know what it would be like to be you and your age at this time in the world. By you looking at me and saying, what would it feel like? What would it be like to have had what I have? And you say to me, how can you help me see my situation differently? See, empathy is it's a secret weapon. And when the guys were on the podcast and they were laughing, and Sean says, empires with empathy, and Sam laughed and he said, yeah, capitalize both the E's. I was like, they don't get it. Capitalize means use a capital letter, but it also means make money. Figure out how you can make money. And my plan is to make money with my empire of empathy, because I know we have a problem to solve and we've started today.
Oh, I love that. And actually, there was something interesting that I noticed. You said empathy is not compassion. And I want to spend some time on it. I know we've already talked a lot, but I feel like there are some people who are going to misconstrue that.
Yep.
And the example that helps me is like me thinking I can imagine what it feels like in the shoes of being a serial killer, but I wouldn't really have compassion for them nor want to be them or anything like that.
Well, here's the thing about that. The way that I view is something called Gestalt. Gestalt is a very big picture. How did we get to there? I don't think or speak in a straight line. If you were to go back and look at the transcript of this, you're going to go, what in the hell? I mean, she was everywhere. I'm a hummingbird. I flit about. I'll give you an example. One of my kids that I worked with when I worked with juvenile offenders, his stepdad beat the crap out of his mom, and he shot him in the base of the spine. He was in a boot camp instead of going to jail, because the reason he shot him in the base of the spine was he wanted to make sure he knew his mom wasn't going to leave the man, no matter how much he beat her, and eventually he would have beat her to death. My kid said, if I shoot him in the spine, if I shoot him in the base of the spine, he'll be in a wheelchair and at least she'll be able to get away. Now, does that change your compassion for him? Does that change your compassion for the guy in the wheelchair? No, it just helps you understand a little bit better. I don't have to say, oh, yes, Joey, I think that was a great idea. You probably did the right thing. No, he didn't do the right thing. He made the choice he made. And now I can see why he made the choice. It's not about me agreeing with his choice. It's not about me agreeing with what he did. It's me seeing him for the person that he is. My mom and dad were the most in love, crazy couple. I can't imagine what that kid must have felt like watching his mother get beat. I can't put myself in his shoes. I don't want to, but I can ask him to show me how he came to that decision so that I can understand it, whether I agree with it, whether I have compassion for what happened or not. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, a lot of what you're saying reminds me of nonviolent communication, the book, where it's like you don't need to agree with something, but you just have to show that you understand to kind of
Right.
validate the other person.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes back to that line I gave you. What I heard you say was, "Is that what you meant?" And learning how to do that with people who, especially with little boys who were, I mean, there were some bad little boys. I had little gangbangers that were learning how to help them understand who those voices are. How did you come to the place where you got arrested? Understanding the path is more about empathy. But empathy it's so misunderstood because we think that it means agreement, and it doesn't.
Oh, I think that's a powerful line. You should put it in your socials somewhere. But I'm so glad we took this foray into something that was like I was trying to do the outro, but then I'm so glad you asked for feedback because I feel like I learned so much that I'm gonna take with me for the rest of my life and how I interact with people.
Cool.
So
You can be the first person to take my course, and I'll give it to you for free.
oh, I appreciate it. But like the reason I started this podcast was also because I don't want to pay big corporations. I want to pay individuals so we can all get rich together. So, I mean, your course is going to be a business expense, so I don't mind paying for it and supporting you. And it's like my way of thank you for sharing your like hour and a half with me. And I also want to thank the listener because like you listened to this whole thing. That's amazing. I usually listen to podcasts at 2 times speed, so maybe it won't be an hour and a half for them. But yeah,
My husband's one advice to remind me was talk slow, which I don't know if they listen to it at double speed. They may
yeah. You know, the other day I was like, this person said, "Oh, I'll speed up my talking for you," and I was like, "This is just normal speed. What do you mean?" But yeah, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom today. I definitely learned a lot, especially that TRIP acronym makes it so easy to remember. I'll use that for my decisions going forward. But where can people find you and like do you have anything to promote?
The biggest thing that I would say is, I'm on, Twitter and TikTok as Ask Auntie Paige, and then my newsletter is the Neurosparkle newsletter. I'll send you a link to that. To find me, the best way to find me is visionquest.ltd. That takes you directly to the newsletter. I am relaunching it because I'm kind of out of the meantime. My life is starting over, and I finally have a chance to really see what I want to do. My book, I'll send you the link, is available on Amazon. And I would say that if you do nothing else, start with the book because if you read the book, it's going to sneak up on you. That last part that I read to you, it's going to sneak up on you, and you're going to go, "Why would I think that I need to be something other than who I am?" And then everything after that is going to follow. I don't know where I'm going with this. Really, I'm just so excited to finally have a chance to start sharing what I've learned.
Yeah, if you have any feedback for Auntie Page, make sure to leave it in the comments. I'll be sharing all the links to her stuff in the show notes. And thank you for listening.
Thanks.